Narrator low calm voice. In a quiet valley forgotten by time, there stood a chapel that no one visited anymore. Its walls, cracked and pale, still held the scent of candles long extinguished. And inside, a woman sat alone. Her name was Mara. She came every evening just before sunset, kneeling in the same pew, whispering words no one else could hear. Mara softly trembling. "Forgive me, Father, for I can't forgive myself." Narrator. The confession box beside her had long been empty. No priest had lived in the chapel for years. But still every night Mara came, to speak to the silence. Sound of a window rattling, faint thunder. Narrator somber. The villagers said she had once been a teacher. They said she was kind, that children adored her, that her laughter used to echo through the hills. But that was before the fire. Before the night the chapel burned, and the children inside never came out. Mara whispering through tears. "I didn't mean to lock the doors. I thought they'd be safe." Narrator low emotional. Those words were her prayer, her punishment, her only truth. She had built her life around guilt, brick by brick. And even the rain that fell upon her window couldn't wash it away. Sound of footsteps entering the chapel. Narrator. But that night, something changed. A sound she hadn't heard in years echoed through the chapel. The sound of footsteps. She froze. Mara's startled whisper. "Who's there?" Silence. Then, a voice faint but calm. Stranger's voice. "You've been praying to the wrong silence, Mara." Narrator deep reflective. Her breath caught. No one had spoken her name inside those walls since the fire. The voice came from the confession booth. From behind the wooden screen where no one had sat for decades. Mara barely breathing. "Father, is that you?" Stranger's voice. "No, child. I'm not here to forgive you. I'm here to remind you what forgiveness truly means." Low thunder rolls, rain intensifies. Narrator. And for the first time in years, Mara's tears fell not from guilt, but from fear, because the voice behind the screen was one she thought had burned with the chapel long ago. Narrator calm deep tone. The voice from the other side of the booth lingered in the air. Low steady, too familiar to be a stranger. Mara's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the pew. Her heart pounded like the same bells that had told the night the chapel burned. Mara whispering. "This isn't real. You can't be here." Voice soft echoing. "I was here when you locked the doors, Mara. I was here when the smoke rose, when the light turned red." Narrator. Her breath hitched. There was a weight in those words. Not anger, not hate, just sorrow. Mara voice breaking. "You were a child. I tried to save you." Voice. "Did you? Or did you save yourself?" A pause, sound of rain hitting the roof harder. Narrator somber. Mara felt the sting of that question. It was one she had asked herself 1,000 times. In dreams, in tears, in silence. She closed her eyes. The scent of smoke filled her memory. Children screaming. The door handle, too hot to touch. And her own hand, letting go. Mara crying softly. "I couldn't reach you. The flames were too high." Voice quietly. "I know. But you never came back." Narrator. The confession booth creaked. Old wood moving like breath. And in that sound Mara heard the echo of the fire again. Mara. "What are you? A spirit? A dream?" Voice. "I am what you buried the night you stopped believing you deserved to live." Narrator gentle reflective. Her tears fell freely now. But behind them came something else, anger. Mara firmly. "No. You don't understand. I loved those children. I gave them everything." Be steady. "And still you let guilt become your god." Silence, faint chime of a candle holder tipping over. Narrator. Mara's candle had gone out. The room plunged into dim orange light. And the shadow of the cross stretched across her trembling hands. Voice softer now. "Every soul deserves to be heard, Mara, even yours. But you've spent all these years listening only to your pain." Mara whispering. "Then tell me, how do I stop?" Voice. "By remembering what truly happened that night, not what your guilt has made you believe." Sound of wind blowing through a broken window, papers fluttering. Narrator lower tone. The air shifted. Mara stood moving toward the booth. Her fingers brushed against the wood, cold, wet with tears or rain she couldn't tell. He pulled the door open. But the seat inside was empty. Only a small wooden rosary lay there. its beads blackened by fire, its cross still warm to the touch. Mara softly. Then who's been listening to me all these years? Narrator soft haunting tone. The silence answered. But for the first time it didn't feel empty. She turned toward the altar. And saw the candles begin to light themselves. One by one. Like memories being awakened. Voice now inside her mind. The truth waits for you where the fire began. Narrator emotional. Her heart sank. That meant only one place. The ruins behind the chapel. Where the school had once stood. Mara determined whisper. Then I'll go. Narrator closing tone. And as she stepped into the rain, the chapel door swung shut behind her. On its own. Tande rambles, soft piano note equis. Narrator. The path to forgiveness was waiting. But so were the ghosts of the truth she'd run from all her life. Narrator low somber tone. The path behind the chapel was overgrown. Wild grass and vines covering what once was sacred ground. The ruins of the school lay there, silent and broken, swallowed by time. Mara walked slowly, her lantern flickering in the wind. Each step felt like a heartbeat from a ghost she used to know. Mara whispering. I told them to wait for me. I told them I'd come back. Narrator. Her voice cracked under the weight of her own words. The world had moved on. But the past, it had never left this place. Wind howls softly, faint echo of children laughing. Narrator Kamiri. She heard it again, laughter faint and fragile, like a memory breaking through stone. Mara froze. The sound came from the old classroom. The door was still half burned, blackened wood covered in ivy, and carved into it, a child's handprint. Mara barely breathing. Anna. Flashback sound, soft chime, then distant children's voices. Narrator gentle storytelling tone. Her mind slipped backward, to the night before the fire. The children had stayed late for the harvest festival. They'd been singing, laughing, their voices carrying through the valley like joy itself. And Mara. She'd been proud. Young Mara laughing softly. All right, little ones, just one more song. Then home. Narrator. But when the rain began, she'd gone to the chapel to fetch the candles, leaving them alone just for a moment. Just one small moment. Sound of fire crackling, distant screams fading in. Narrator dark tone. When she returned, the night had turned to flame. Smoke crawled across the ground, and the old oil lamps, they'd fallen. The doors had jammed shut from the heat. She tried to open them. Her hands burned against the handle. Young Mara panicked, shouting. Hold on. I'm coming. Anna. Samuel. Narrator. But the screams had faded faster than the fire. And in the smoke, she had seen something. A figure, small, still at the window. Watching her. Sound returns to present. Rain again, distant thunder. Narrator calm, heavy tone. Now standing in the ruins. She looked toward that same window. And saw her reflection trembling. But behind it, another. A faint outline of a little girl smiling softly. Child's voice, gentle whisper. You did come back, Miss Mara. Mara staggered breath. Anna? Child's voice. We waited so long. Narrator emotional. Mara's knees gave way. She fell to the wet ground, clutching her lantern like it could hold her together. Mara crying. I couldn't save you. I tried. Child's voice. We know. You didn't fail us. You failed yourself. Soft piano begins. Slow, emotional melody. Narrator reflective. The rain softened. And through her tears, Mara saw light glowing faintly across the ruins. Tiny flickers like candles relit after a century. The voices of the children echoed gently around her. Not in pain but in peace. Children's voices, softly in unison. We forgave you long ago. Narrator. She wept, not from sorrow but from release. As at last she understood. Forgiveness doesn't come from confession. It comes from remembrance. Thunder fades, night turns calm. Mara whispering peaceful. Then I'll remember you all, every one of you. Narrator soft, emotional close. As the dawn broke over the valley, the old school bell, untouched by hands, rang once low and steady. The sound rolled across Eldam like a final prayer, telling every soul that the night had finally ended. Narrator calm low tone. When the first light of dawn broke across the valley, the rain had stopped. The smoke that once haunted the ruins was gone. and for the first time in years the air felt clean. Mara knelt in the mud, her hands trembling, her heart strangely still. It was as if time itself had paused, waiting for her to breathe again. Mara softly through tears. "You're free now, all of you." Narrator. A voice, gentle as a sigh, floated back to her. Children's voices faintly in harmony. "And so are you, Miss Mara." Light wind through trees. Faint sound of bells far away. Narrator, emotional spiritual tone. She looked toward the old chapel, its broken tower glowing in the sunrise. For years she had come there seeking forgiveness, never realizing it had been waiting inside her all along. Every step back toward that place felt lighter, as if the weight she had carried had been lifted one memory at a time. Mara's soft smile. "They never hated me. I did." Narrator. The words left her lips like a prayer, and with them the pain began to fade. Sound of chapel doors creaking open. Narrator reflective. Inside the candles still burned, their flames tall and calm, casting gold across the walls where shadows once lived. Mara approached the altar, and placed the burned rosary upon it. Mara whispering, "This is my last confession." Soft pause, silence holds. Mara tearful, sincere. "I spent my life asking to be forgiven, but I never said I was sorry." Narrator gentle, heartfelt. Her voice broke not from pain, but from truth. And in that truth something beautiful happened. The bell above the chapel began to sway. Slowly at first, then stronger, ringing once more through the valley. Soft, single bell chime echoes. The sound wasn't haunting anymore. It was pure. It was peace. Narrator, emotional tone. The villagers said that morning, a woman was seen walking away from the chapel, her white shawl glowing against the sunrise. They never saw her again, but some claimed that when they prayed, they could hear her voice in the echo of the bells. Soft, gentle, forgiving. Mara's voice, faint whisper. "Forgive yourself, before the world forgets your name." Soft piano and distant bells, fading. Narrator, final tone, warm and calm. And so ended the story of the last confession. Not in tragedy but in peace. For every soul that carries regret, there is still time to listen, and still time to forgive. Because even the darkest night can ring with light again.